Everybody, it is Romania Black, and I'll be honest, watching Puella Magi Madoka Magica, it's like when you've been in an area where you know it's frequently laden with car crashes, and you're like, I should probably move on. If I stay here, I'll probably see another car crash, and that would be really bad, but then you just stick around waiting for more. Maybe not the best analogy, but I find myself looking more and more forward to this series every week. I have my schedule lined out, and I'm pacing myself. I'm trying not to get too ahead of the game. I'm pacing myself. I have Geen, the moderator for this series, that they check the comments every week, and they're like, okay, on Wednesdays, which is a couple days before Sunday, they're like, by Wednesday, they're like, okay, you can check out these comments now, and I have never wanted to check comments more frequently than for this series so that I can watch the next episode because it's just so good. We are on episode 5 of Madoka Magica, and things are so bizarre, but these comments I'm going to tell you about before we start this video have my mind a storm. It's just like my mind is like has all these theories, it's going crazy, it's just I cannot wait to dive into this episode and see what we get. So let's go ahead and talk about these comments before we get started, because I have just a wee bit to get through. Pancake was talking in the Discord on Patreon about how the TV version of the scene where, those two gray bottles in episode 3 or episode 4, the two gray bottles in episode 3 that were like mixed together, and you were like, if you mix these two together, everybody's gonna die, and we're like, what are we doing? Pancake said, and I guess it was for episode 4 last week, these episodes are a mess. They were talking about how in the TV version there were actual cleaning chemicals, and they shared a still of it where in the TV version there was like a blue and a green bottle, and you could distinctly tell they were like cleaning chemicals that if you mix it could cause a very horrible reaction that could kill you. And I guess for the Blu-ray version they replaced them in episode 4 with the black and white bottles, so it wasn't quite as obvious. It's kind of like the Blu-ray producers were just being like dare cops, and they're like, let's not show the children how to mix certain chemicals together to cause tragic, horrific things, because after watching this series, you might be in a sad place. So that was interesting to know. But the thing that gets me, y'all, thing that gets my theory goggles on and gets them adjusted, is they shared in the Discord, again, some of the imagery from episode 4, where it was Madoka traveling through the television witch, the TV witch. Now, the witch that killed Mommy, someone told me in the comments that I've been mispronouncing it and saying Mammy, but it's supposed to be Mommy. Why, show? Why? Grammar. But Mommy, fine. But anyway, the witch that killed Mommy, there kept being the name Charlotte all over and over the screen. And I was like, Charlotte, that's a girl's name traditionally, so could she have been a former magical girl? Well, in this last episode, the TV witch has the name Kirsten frequented throughout all of it. And I was like, okay, so maybe a girl named Kirsten became the witch. We can theorize, right? But the thing that makes me think that these witches that are curses that are made from despair are from the despairs of the magical girls. Now, do I think that they could be magical girls that have transformed into witches? Maybe not. Maybe they could be like shades of the magical girl, where the magical girl's despair like personifies itself and creates itself. There's a series called Jujutsu Kaisen that is a current shonen playing now that kind of runs with this theory that negative emotions can become their own entities, and they're called curses. So it could be this situation where these witches are the manifestations of the despair that is formed from the magical girls and the despair caused by their wishes going awry. I don't know. It's just a possibility. Or they could be created from the magical girls. We don't know enough about them. But what makes me think the magical girls and witches are connected is because the translated text in the TVs in the last episode translates to, I like fools, I don't like fools, I don't want to work. The I don't want to work line, I feel, could relate maybe to their original wish. Maybe they wished to Kyubey that they didn't want to work anymore, and they were like, I don't want to have to work anymore, so I wish I had the ability to not ever have to work again. And Kyubey's like, as you wish, and they became magical girl. Or it could be that they didn't want to work for Kyubey anymore, and they're like, I don't want to work for you and hunt witches anymore, so can I go please? And Kyubey's like, nope. And then they became a witch. So that could be, but then the line, I like fools, I don't like fools, that kind of not knowing which side to take, I think it's all connected to the magical girls and Kyubey, but how and how they are connected, we don't know that yet. But thank you, Pancake, for listing that. And then I've got a couple other comments. I had a comment from Math. Math talked about the CD back in episode 4, or back in episode 3, was one from David Oistrakh, who is a very famous violinist, famous in the world of classical music. He died in 1974, but there are lots of recordings of him still available. And in the CD, the boy that Sayaka has a crush on is playing Rachmaninoff's Vocalese Op. 34, number 14. And you can find the interpretation by David Oistrakh on YouTube. They also were talking about in Mommy's death scene from episode 3, how the big glob that falls on the table next to Homura is Mommy's remains. Awesome, which is why Homura looks so with it with such a disdain. Also, they said similarly, before, Mommy catches a teacup after each hunt, but this time there's no one there to catch the teacup, and it gets shattered by the witch's grief seed. And that's why we see the teacup that's smashed on the table, and then the red ribbon that was Mommy's becomes like liquidized and looks like blood on the teacup. That's all well and good and super creepy, but you know what else is creepy? Del R. Timmy noted that Mommy's theme song, Creedence Justitiam, is really fun to listen to. Apparently, it's a choral piece that's played at the end of the previous and beginning of this episode, which was episode 3. And it's written in a fake language. It takes inspiration from Italian, Latin, and Japanese. This series is so bonkers and off the wall. Just, they didn't have to go the mile to create a fake language that is used by the witches that y'all have deciphered and fans have spent hours and hours translating. They not only did that, they made up their own freaking language for a theme song. Now, that's such dedication, and it's crazy shit like that I love. So that kind of trivia and useless knowledge, I'm like, I eat up. That's amazing. And then finally, save this comment for last. El Freya posed the question, well, you seem like you don't trust Kyubey at all. Which I don't. And they said, well, wouldn't you trust Luna from Sailor Moon? Isn't it kind of the same thing? Okay. I see I'm being gaslit. El Freya, I will answer your question this way. Here's the thing. I'll say this. Say what you will. But Luna, for all intents and purposes in Sailor Moon, was pretty transparent about the powers that Serena was getting, was actively trying to tell her to be careful about those powers. She was not offering up any miracles in exchange for Serena's endless servitude against the Negaverse. She was not pitting Serena. My big thing is she wasn't pitting Serena against the other Sailor Scouts and doing this whole territory nonsense. She wanted them to actively work together. And then finally, she wasn't a creepy Lovecraftian meets Hello Kitty nightmare. So, yeah. I absolutely trust Luna way more than I trust Kyubey. But there's a black cat in the OP, so is Luna making a cameo in this? I don't know. Are they going to, like, parody Luna? Because there's Artemis, which is kind of hilarious because Artemis was the female goddess, but is a male cat in the English dub of Sailor Moon. You work with that. But yeah, Artemis was the white one that was wisdom and knowledge, and then you had Luna, who was the moon. Is Kyubey going to be the Artemis to whatever this black cat is? And it's also funny because the white cat Artemis in Sailor Moon was with Mina, who is Sailor Venus, who bears a lot of resemblance to Mommy. So do what you will, but I thought that was all very interesting. I'm super excited to dive into this episode, y'all. I cannot wait, but we've almost wasted 10 minutes, so we're not gonna waste any more. But keep those comments coming. I'm just like an addict, just sitting there like, yes. And then Geen is doing a really good job of making sure I don't have any spoilers, because I've heard this series is very easy to spoil, and I'm not gonna read any of those. I'm almost halfway through, so we'll keep going. So we're gonna start episode 5 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see what fresh fun we have today. How dare this show? How dare it? This episode went by so fast. And then it's just like, oh, you're not going to like give us resolution with Homura and Kyouko and them? Oh my gosh, no. Of course, next week is the halfway point of the season. And I know we still have the movie or movies or whatever to get through. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I'm just like, oh, it's so frustrating because Homura, I feel like Homura can't tell too much because she doesn't quite know how much. I feel like Homura does not want Kyubey to know a lot about her now that we know that she's some kind of irregularity, and Kyubey may not know how she came to be, which we're going to talk about. I'm like, wait a minute. But we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to be curious about that, but maybe my theory is that she doesn't want to say too much because she doesn't know how closely Kyubey is listening, because Kyubey has this telepathic link with all of them. So she's like, I don't want to tell you, and then Kyubey hears something that I don't want Kyubey to hear. So, because she's trying to kill Kyubey, right? So let's break down Homura just a little bit. Homura has kind of led off on the trying to kill Kyubey business. I think because she's worried Kyubey will try to, frame it. She doesn't want to try to kill Kyubey right now because Kyubey would be like, oh no, Madoka, Homura's trying to kill me. If only you became a magical girl and stopped her. And I'm like, stop that. So I think that's why Homura has stopped, because she's like, son of a bitch, he's going to try to use it against me. And so, but she wants Kyubey dead. However, she had wanted Kyubey dead from the beginning, and Madoka saved him. So, whatever. But she is an irregularity. So, we're going to talk about that in all of this. And kind of, she does not have a great outlook about the magical girls, does not think they're doing anything that's productive. If she's been around Kyouko for a while, I can understand why. So this episode was very weird. Everything seems... I kept waiting. Last episode, I went to a big old tangent about how the wish was going to backfire and, all this stuff was going to happen. This episode, everything goes right as rain, sunshine, flowers for everything. It's just beautiful, beautiful aftermath of this wish. Everything goes so wonderfully. And I was waiting for the shoe to fall, but it doesn't. And I was like, okay. I keep waiting for it to all seem magical and really good, like it's going great, and then for it all to go to hell. And it hasn't yet, so we'll see, I guess. But I was just kind of thrown off by that. I thought that was interesting. I like that there's different flowers that she's brought. I don't know, though. I feel like the Discord, and everyone's trying to gaslight me about Kyubey. They're like, what are you talking about? Kyubey's totally fine. Kyubey's a little angel. Why would you think that Kyubey's so mean? I don't know. Maybe because when the episode shows the wish-making ceremony, it's the creepiest shit ever. Maybe we go from like being happy and sunshine and rainbows to like everything is pitch black framed against the blood red sky. I feel like it's what's her face, the Zira, the female lion in The Lion King 2, that's my lullaby, and it's like all framed by all these oranges and reds through a blood red sky. I don't like this circular shaped garden. Someone in the comments said that this was the bougiest hospital by design. And I think that's so true. I love it. I mean, I love the hospital design. Is it realistic? No. Is it really creative and intricate? Yes. So I'm totally fine with it. But then you have her. It's like a ceremony, like a ritual. You have Sayaka in the middle of the circle, in the middle of this maze of flowers. Like you're at the center of the heart. You're at the soul. Like in the center of the soul is her. And then for whatever reason the show decided to artistically depict it, Kyubey is sitting on this stone pillar with spikes coming out of it. It looks a little demonic. I don't know. It just doesn't looks wary. She's like, you can grant any wish. And he's like, rest assured, your prayer will be heard. Yep, uh-huh. And he's, yeah, on top of this spiked thing. And he's like, are you ready? She's like, yeah, do it. And so she makes the wish. And Kyubey's so happy. Kyubey's like, yes, good. I don't know. Is this little demonic cat rabbit just feeding off their souls and they get like residuals from it? I don't know. But her shadow, it's like a dial. Her shadow passes by her. The shot of Kyubey with his ears out in the shadows, that looks a little scary to me. that isn't framed like a really cutesy, like, oh, it's magical and sparkles and rainbows. No, that's framed like you just sold your soul to the devil, girl. I hope it was worth it. Hope you're happy. I hope no regrets. And so, yeah, and also I want to point out that her shadow is very faint. Like in the light, like her shadow is very faint, but his shadow is like pitch black against hers. Nope. And then he takes those like second form of ears and connects it into her heart, which looks like it hurts. I don't know. I would kind of want to stop the moment that that little creepy thing connected its second pair of ears into my soul. And then it like does these like sonic waves. And there's like, she's been touched by an angel. And then out comes a part of her soul in terms of the soul egg. Yeah. And she looks like she's in pain in that moment. I don't know. Seems like it's a problematic thing. And the way that Kyubey with the spikes and everything on there, the shadows make Kyubey look like an angel. But I don't know. I just watched another series with little egg-shaped things that involved creatures that were called angels, but they weren't angels, so we'll see how this plays out. But yeah, and they're like, now just accept it. So here's the question. Kyubey gives the soul gem to her and says, just accept it. What happens if you don't accept it? Is that how the witches are formed? If you make the contract, but then you don't accept the soul gem, does that become a witch? Maybe, I don't know. He's like, this is your destiny. And yeah, gives the egg over to her and it's blue. Okay. Interesting. So that's what ends up happening. They make the contract. He says, this is your destiny. Just go ahead and take it. I don't know. I don't trust creatures that tell me this is my destiny when I'm like, mofo, you don't know me. You don't know who I am. You're just sitting there unblinking, looking creepy as F. No. And she accepts it. And then we have the OP. So cool. Nice. Still don't have the black cat, but whatever. So I will never regret this is the name of this episode, which cool. Good to know that you won't regret it, Sayaka. So we come back and it's like typical every time there's a magical girl episode and their friend that is not a magical girl is saved. The next day they conveniently don't remember. I think it is interesting that the only characters left in this room during this scene are all girls, which is interesting. They're all just kind of hanging out. Maybe there's one guy in the back there. But yeah, Hitomi doesn't remember anything and just said there was like a mass hallucination going on. Who knew? I'm honestly so surprised. I really thought Hitomi would end up being one of the magical girls. She has green hair. She could still end up being green. So far of the magical girls, we have Homura is purple. Sayaka is blue. Kyouko is red. Mommy was yellow. If Hitomi became a magical girl, she would be green. And then I'm assuming Madoka is pink if that ends up happening. I mean, I won't be surprised if Hitomi becomes magical girl, but I'm curious why Kyubey didn't target her as well. I mean, why not? You've already got Sayaka and Madoka. Why not target Hitomi? But maybe it's better to have Hitomi as like the innocent bystander that you can manipulate through being in danger than getting her involved as well. So I gave Sayaka a hard time in the reaction when she said that Hitomi should have just taken the day off, because I was like, oh, that was a selfish answer. But honestly, going back in hindsight, I don't blame Sayaka for saying that, because yeah, if I'd just been through, here's the thing, Hitomi doesn't know what she's been through, so she doesn't see the need to take the day off. I feel if she was like Sayaka and Madoka and knew what you'd just been through, you might want to take the day off, but that's not what ended up happening. And then she's like, oh, my family would be worried about me if I was actually sick. Again, we have this interesting comparison. Sayaka, we don't get a lot into her family life, so we don't know anything about that with regards to her. When she arranges the violin solo on the rooftop, it's all of the boy's family and not her own. So we don't know what her family situation is like, but we get the idea that Hitomi has a family that she's concerned about and cares about, kind of like Madoka. So yeah. And then Homura's just sitting there like, like, what do we do? And then poor Madoka. I feel for Madoka because Madoka is so nice. She's trying to figure out what to do now because her best friend is a magical girl. She watched one magical girl die, and she's talked to Homura, who has told her that lots of magical girls have died, and she's like, what do I do? Like, how do I handle this? And I respect that Madoka doesn't agree to become a magical girl. Do I think she's going to become a magical girl by the end of this series? I don't know now. I think I'm like 60% sure she's going to become a magical girl and she's going to take the damn contract and I'm going to be pissed about it. But there's like 40% of me that's like, I don't think she's going to do it. And this entire OP has just been a big gaslighting fake out. But then there's another part of me now. I would say that 60% of me thinks that she's going to become a magical girl regardless. Kyubey's going to get his damn wish because he won't let it go. He won't go target other girls. He's dead set on Madoka for reasons, and we've expressed in the discussions that maybe Madoka has the potential to be a very strong magical girl, and Kyubey's like, oh, her soul will be extra tasty if I get her to become one. I'm like 20% sure that she may say no. And then 10% of me is like, I wonder if she'll become an irregularity like Homura and somehow fall into the loophole. Somehow. How that works, I don't know. But 10% of me is like, maybe she could do that. But in this next scene, there's a bunch of windmills and a factory. Again, they're the set pieces in this series are fascinating. We either go from like 1,000 lamps and light posts to now suddenly 1,000 windmills. I don't know if the windmills are supposed to suggest like winds of change that are blowing through, that Sayaka has a new outlook on life now that she has power. Because, yeah, she has her hands up in the air. She seems super happy that she's a magical girl now. This hill that they are sitting on, I swear, is the anime hills of hills. And I'm sure Japan has a lot of them. That's why they're so frequent. But if I had a nickel for every time I saw a hill like that in a slice of life anime, I would probably have $1. I mean, Run with the Wind has it that I've seen it. The Daily Lives of High School Boys has it that I've seen it. I've seen it in Bungo Stray Dogs. I've seen it in this series. I've seen it, oh God, I know it's been in Haikyuu. So, I mean, there's been a bunch of anime that use this exact same hill format. Kuroko's Basketball's used it. It's any sports anime or slice of life has this like hill setting that's being used as a template. And so I find that fascinating. But she's like, oh, I feel great. She's like, I took care of that witch pretty easily yesterday. I think that Kyubey set that up to be a pretty damn easy witch. I think Kyubey was setting that up to lull Sayaka into a false sense of security that everything was going hunky-dory, right? And I give Sayaka a hard time because at the beginning I think what annoys me about Sayaka is that she doesn't give Homura a chance at all. And I know some people in the comments have been like, well, Homura acts really cold and distant. And I'm like, yeah, I do get that. But we've also seen Homura have conversations with Madoka that were not, she was blunt and straightforward, but it's not like she blows, Madoka off. She cares about her. And Sayaka doesn't get those opportunities. But Sayaka from the beginning, like, she called her a bitch, like, right away. And I was like, girl, you don't even know her yet. And it seemed like she had made up her mind about Homura way before, while Madoka got to know Homura, Sayaka had already made up her mind, didn't like her. But I give Sayaka a hard time because she instantly judged Homura. But I do appreciate that she does care about Madoka. And she's like, oh, I got to help my two best friends. I couldn't just sit by and not do anything. That would have been a lot more scary. So she says that she has more confidence since she has this soul gem. Now, it's got like a little bit of black edge around it. It's got some like darkness inside of it. I don't know what that means. It also has a little C at the top. So Sayaka has like a little C in her thing. And then there is a D, and it's on her fingernail as well, but it's on top of there. I don't know what Mammy's was. I would look up Mammy's soul gem, but I'm afraid that it would give me spoilers. I want Mammy. Is it going to let me do something? I just want to see real quick. It's a flower. Okay. That's all. I want to just find a picture of it, and that's all I looked up. It was a flower. Okay. So Mammy's was just a little flower. Interesting. So I'm like, is the C for confidence? Is it for charisma and charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent? She's like, I'm a bit proud of myself too for being able to save her friends. She's like, I'm flying high. I don't know, girl. Don't be like Icarus and fly too close to the sun. We know how that goes. Yeah, I see how that is. She's like, you can count on magical girl Sayaka-chan to protect the city. And I'm like, we learn real quick that there are other magical girls that are not on board with that narrative. And Madoka asks if she regretted anything. The part that gets me is like, Madoka has been around, like, Homura tells her this is a bad thing. Being a magical girl is a bad thing. You shouldn't do it. Don't go through with it. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. Mommy makes it out to be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do this because you'll be isolated, but also I kind of want you to be my friend, so yeah, sure, do it. And then Sayaka is just like, Sayaka is a walking, like, endorsement of it. Like, no wonder Kyubey wanted her to become a magical girl, because she's like, oh man, I should have sold my soul a long time ago. I feel great. I feel the only regret I have is I hesitated so long. And I'm like, you're not helping matters. You're not helping matters at all. I'm like, and this is the thing too. We talk about selfless versus selfish. It's like we see the grief seed that's on there, right? And the grief seed at the top there has like a little eye and everything. It looks like a soul gem. It looks exactly like it. Only has a piercing little sticker at the end of it. The thing of it is, it's like we talk about selfish versus selfless. Sayaka's answer is like, oh man, I would have gave it my soul a long time ago. I feel great. This is wonderful. But she's not thinking about, like, an episode ago, her and Madoka were fearing for their lives, and they both heard how dangerous this is. I'm like, hey, if my friend who's not a magical girl that could possibly be putting her life in danger was asking me if I liked this life-threatening job, even if I was feeling confident, even if I did feel like it was good, I don't know if I'd want to endorse it and put my friend through that, because it's kind of like Sayaka made the wish to save her guy friend, but it's not like she was backed up into a corner. So I'm like, should you be endorsing this to your friend if you're worried about their safety too, or are you just worried about yourself? I don't know. And she's like, if I'd known, I would have become a magical girl sooner. And Madoka's like, cool, thanks. And she says, if Mommy-san and I had fought the witch together, she might not have died. Madoka, I feel, is questioning that too. What's so frustrating about that part is they don't know Mommy didn't have to fight alone. She could have had Homura there. Homura offered and said, hey, I want to get them out of there because that witch is dangerous. And Mommy is the one that tied Homura up. So it is Mommy's fault that she died. It is all her fault. If she had worked with Homura like Homura asked, then they would have been fine. But her pride got in the way, and then this was the punishment for it. It's like, And Madoka doesn't really know what to say to that, right? And so then Sayaka, okay, she comes through. She has like the little C. I don't know if it's supposed to look like a moon. Maybe it's supposed to look like a moon. She has the ring on her finger. Maybe it is a moon. Okay, it's not a C. It's a moon. Okay, well, we have a flower and we have a moon. Okay. Fair enough, I guess. And she's like, don't think of something silly. And I do like that Sayaka says, she's like, I didn't know back then. She's like, it feels like I was destined to become a magical girl from the start, and I found my wish, something I would risk my life to fight for. And I'm frustrated it took me so long to realize that. And she's like, you shouldn't feel guilty. You don't have to become a magical girl if you don't want to. I'm glad she says that. I don't know how I feel about I feel like I've been destined to be this for so long, when a literal cat demon has been like persuading you to do this for how long now? So I'm like, I don't feel like you were destined so much as pushed into this, and now it feels like destiny. Ugh. But I don't know. I'm going to give Kyubey a hard time. You all will not convince me that he's not evil. There's no way. The show is doing everything it can to throw you all the red flags, to throw you all the hints and clues that Kyubey is evil as sin. And everybody's like, oh, he's not that bad. I don't know why you would think that about him. I'm like, oh, I'll tell you why I think that about him. Because of the whole Kyouko business. But we're not at it yet. So anyway, we go back to Sayaka going to the hotel that's shaped like a phallic symbol. And it makes sense that the one guy is still there. Kamijo's there for rehabilitation. because his legs are still needing therapy, but his hand is working. And she's like, is there any other part of your body bothering you? And he's like, no, I feel so good that it's scary. They cut to all of these chairs. There's like 6 chairs sitting here, 7 if you count the one she's sitting in. Hers is the most bland. You don't even notice it. Show what the fuck? Why are there like all of these chairs with different designs just there? There's no reason. They're like all ridiculously like over the top design chairs that are just there. They're just there. That opening shot where you zoom out from them in the hospital bed and you see all these chairs surrounding them, it was just as scary as the witch in this episode. They add so many unsettling moments to this show that you just go, oh, ooh, I don't like that. And then they just treat it like it's nothing. They don't even acknowledge it. They're like, it's fine. I'm like, what? So yeah, he's like, I started to feel like the accident was just a bad dream. It's a miracle like you told me. And then he says, I said a lot of mean things to you, and being depressed was no excuse. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. And she's like, you should be completely and totally happy. He's like, this just doesn't feel real. And she's like, and she takes him to go get a breath of fresh air and takes him up to the top floor. So I'm really surprised by that. I figured that he would ignore her or be mean to her, and that would kind of be like the price that you pay for the wish. The person's not going to reciprocate it. But so far, that doesn't seem to be the case. This all becomes this really cute, magical moment. I'm like, oh, okay, girl gets to have her cake and eat it too. All right, all right. In like the most Willy Wonka of glass elevators. And I'm like, I'm glad it works out for her. I'm honestly really surprised by that. We don't see Kyubey here during this position, which is fine. But then, yeah, they go up to the rooftop, and again, what a Neon Genesis moment of them clapping as he arrives. It's so Neon Genesis. It's not even funny. And then the nurses and the staff, his parents are there. They give him the violin. He plays it. And it's like this magical moment. Like everything her wish was for. It's like, of course, you don't regret it. And he seems happy at the very end. She's like, my wish came true, and I'll never regret it. I mean, good for Sayaka. Good for her. I'm glad that she has this moment in the sunset. Everything looks fine. It's that ring is glistening there. She says she'll never regret it, but as she's saying that, the sun is setting. So, I don't know. I feel like this might have been the last happy moment for her, or it's a death flag that she's going to die in the next episode, but now Homura's shown up, so this is the happiest I've ever been. And then, yeah, and that's it. So meanwhile, we cut through the building and we look to who's looking at her through these very creepy, like, telescope with the rainbow around them, but Kyouko. As she's looking there, she reminds me of Jessie from Pokemon. Now, here's the thing. She calls out Sayaka as the new magical girl. And then Kyubey, who is just on this random stone pillar that also has like little like antlers and stuff surrounding it. What? Kyubey is like the ultimate in passive aggressive behavior, because Kyubey starts out being like, do you really want to start a fight with her? What you say, it's like the way that Kyubey uses language, right? Instead of saying like, do not fight her, they're like, oh, do you want to? Like, they frame it as a question. And I get that maybe Kyubey is phrasing it as a question because he knows that this girl's kind of an asshole and she probably may get more riled up. She might be one of those people that, you know, you see some kids that the parent says no and it makes them want to act even more rebellious. Maybe that's the logic Kyubey's going off of. That would be giving him a lot of the benefit of the doubt. But they're like, oh, do you really want to start a fight with her? And she responds being like, well, it just looks too easy. I could kill someone like her in a heartbeat. Or what? And then she has the red soul gem. Yep. And it looks like it has the same little bits and pieces inside of it too. And it has like a little spiky oval at the top. Looks like an eye. She's like, do you have a problem with that? And he's like, well, it might not be as easy as you think. There's another magical girl in this city after all. And then she's like, oh, well, who is it? Now, Kyubey says, I don't know either, really. Bitch, you don't know? Madoka and Sayaka have said Homura's name like 1,000 times. Bitch, you don't know who she is. You at least know her name. Why are you holding this back? And then Kyoko's like, really? You don't know? What's that supposed to mean? She's a magical girl after making a contract with you, right? And to that, Kyubey says, well, in one sense she did, and in another she didn't. And she's an extreme irregularity. So, she did, but also did not make a contract. What does that mean? How does one do that? How does one gain abilities but doesn't make the contract? I'm like, did she make the contract but didn't accept it so she doesn't have a soul gem? Is that it? Is that what happened? We don't know. We don't know. That's a mystery for us to maybe hopefully find more out about. He's like, even I can't predict her behavior. Okay, well, that's comforting if Kyubey is telling the truth, that Kyubey can't predict Homura. I know some people may view Homura as a bad guy. I do not. I think that Homura is just extremely blunt. And she's like, But I don't think that she's a villain. And I like that Kyubey can't predict her movements because that means that she has an edge over him. And she's like, it's getting too boring around here anyway. I've got to shake things up once in a while. I'm like, is hunting witches not enough for you? Are you not satisfied with that? And then Kyubey just lets her go. I'm like, for someone that wants to protect these girls, you really don't have a problem with them fighting each other, and you really don't try to persuade her otherwise. I mean, Kyubey does the bare minimum. Kyubey's just like, I mean, you probably shouldn't, but I'm not gonna stop you. Just, creepy as sin. So we go back to this mall. I love that every time we go back to this mall, we cut to this empty restaurant. Why we cut to this empty restaurant, I don't know. But it's like too many chairs, too many tables. There's no one there. It's kind of insane why we keep cutting back there. And instead, we cut to this other part of the restaurant where there's like a bag of fries, a burger, and all Homura is having is some coffee. She's like, what do you want to talk about? So yeah, there's like nobody there but them, ever. And Madoka's like, so about Sayaka-chan. She just wants Homura to be a friend with her, to do what she didn't do with Mommy, to possibly protect her. Because here's the thing. Madoka knows, unlike Sayaka, that if Homura had been there with Mommy, then Mommy would have lived. So she's like, I want you to hang out with Sayaka so that she doesn't die. And Homura's like, I'm not going to make you a promise. I love that Homura's like, I'm not like that little cat bastard that's like, I can make any wish you want come true. She's like, I ain't making you a promise because I may not be able to keep it. And I'm not going to lie to you. And she's like, she's persistent. She's stubborn. You know, she's a really nice person though. She has a lovely personality. And then I like that. So what she says there, she's kind. She's a nice person. She's kind and courageous. And she'll go to any lengths to help someone. And Homura says that is a fatal flaw for a magical girl. If you are too kind, if you're reckless, and if you will do anything for anyone else. She's like, I feel like Homura's like, you got to be able to survive. And that survival may be dependent on you running away and abandoning people. And that's not a good thing for some girls to hear. And she's like, if your excessive kindness will lead to weakness. And reckless courage leads to carelessness. And there's no reward for dedication of any kind. So her ring has some runes on it, right? It has some runes on it. Her ring does. It doesn't quite look like the other rings, but it kind of looks like Mammy's. But Homura's is a diamond. Whereas we have Kyouko, which is like the eye with the little Eye of Sauron on there. Okay. There's no reward or dedication of any kind. You can't be a magical girl unless you understand that. She's like, you're not helping people and getting a reward. That's why Tomoe, Mommy, lost her life. And when she pops that lid of that coffee off and Madoka zooms in on it, and it's like, oh, you're referring to the fact that she was decapitated. Awesome show. Like, of course, Madoka's like trauma increases. And then she's just worried about Sayaka being hurt. She's like, she could end up like Mami-san. She's like, well, you're worried about her. And she's like, I can't do anything for her anymore. So I want to ask you, can you be friends with her? She's like, don't fight with her like you did Mami-san. Which she didn't really fight Mami very much. She didn't fight her at all, really. She just was like, I'm going to go do this thing. And Mami like retaliated against her. And she's like, well, shouldn't it be safer if you all fight the witches together? And then Homura's like, you don't get this. I love that anytime like Homura's about to spout some truth, like the Shaft studio makes like that animation really detailed, just like swishes her hair and makes it very dramatic in that moment, and makes her like being like, girl, you don't even know. She's like, I don't want to lie, and I don't want to make any promises I can't keep. So I want you to give up on Sayaka. Because she's like, I can't promise you I can keep her safe. I can't promise you I can work with her. And I can't promise that Kyubey is not going to use her to try to turn you into a magical girl. So you need to like leave her alone, give up on trying to save her, because it's not going to happen. And you're going to end up falling the same fate. Like, I'm with Homura. She's trying to tell Madoka, and then poor Madoka's just crying. And she's like, but why? She's like, she shouldn't have made the contract. I'm like, right, yeah. Homura's not mincing words. She's like, she shouldn't have made it. This is partially my fault too. I should have kept a closer eye on her as I did you. Yep. And she's like, but now I've taken responsibility. She's like, I have to tell you that it's a mistake that cannot be undone. She's like, you can't go back on that contract. There is no like end of term. It'd be like trying to bring someone back from the dead. So basically, yeah, your soul has left your body at this point, and Kyubey has access to it. So you can't go back to pre-magical girl life. You are stuck as a magical girl fighting these witches until the end of time. Now, what happens if you don't fight the witches? We don't know yet, right? What happens if they decide not to? I'm going to be curious to see if, because now, especially since things are going very well with Kamijo, I'm going to be curious to know if there's going to be like a moment where her and Kamijo could like connect, and she's all excited, and then Kyubey's like, oh no, Sayaka, we have to go fight the witches. And Sayaka's like, well, I know there's other magical girls around. I'm going to stay with Kamijo instead, and we're going to have a moment. And then Kyubey's going to be like, I said what I said. You got to go fight witches. And then things go awry. I want to know the consequence of if you don't do what Kyubey asks you to do and you don't fight witches. What happens in that case? Once you become a magical girl, there's no hope for salvation. No hope for salvation is so grim. Basically, Homura is like, you're dead if you become a magical girl. So your friend Sayaka, yeah, that's not going to go over well. There is no hope for salvation. You want to go to heaven, girl? Don't become a magical girl. The contract takes away everything in exchange for a single hope. Now, that's interesting. Homura phrases the miracles. It's like the magical girl is in exchange for a hope. Whereas Kyubey frames it as, oh, it's the magical girl in exchange for a miracle. Which I guess you could frame miracle and hope as the same thing. The thing about it is, a miracle, when you say miracle, it sounds very definitive. It sounds very, oh, you've just saved someone. All these great things are happening. Hope is powerful, but hope also does not suggest, doesn't suggest an accuracy or a definitive element. It's not like, oh, this is going to happen. It's like, oh, I hope it happens. So I'm like, is something going to go awry with the wish? I don't know. This episode was a big transition episode. And then Madoka's like, did you give up too? And she's like, that's right. I'm not going to make excuses or try to atone. I will continue my struggle with whatever sin I have to bear. Man, Homura just sounded like Guts from Berserk, dealing with their sins. They're the struggler. But I respect Homura. I respect the Homura's like, I ain't no hero. I'm not out here saving the world. She's like, I'm just trying to survive and keep you from falling into the same fate that I did. She's like, I'm not here to atone. I'm going to continue struggling with whatever sin I have to bear here. But I wish, the only thing with Homura, I respect her so much. I wish her character would tell us why she's in this position, what happened, what she wished for. But we don't get to know that, which is so frustrating. And poor Madoka. So she's like, I wasted your time. Okay, now when she leaves, there's more people there. But poor Madoka, I feel for her. I feel for Madoka a lot because she's having to choose, like, her best friend has become a magical girl, that she could face the same fate as Mommy, who died, and then the other magical girl, Homura, she's like, I can't help you, it's too late. I feel for her. I'm like, I wish Madoka would stand her ground more in the conviction she has of not becoming a magical girl, but it is hard when every force around you is trying to peer pressure you into becoming a magical girl, including Kyubey. So then we cut to the scene in front of the mirrors where Kyubey is just hanging out, just twiddling his little thumbs, twiddling his little ears while she's like getting ready to go out on her first mission. Like, why Kyubey's in this little compromising position and she's in her house. I think it's interesting that she has a house that's full of all these mirrors, which is interesting, like how she reflects herself. Like, she has 3 mirrors. There's chairs everywhere. But there's like, I don't know, there's like 4 mirrors in this room and like 3 chairs, like 6 pillows. There's like 2 spires coming out of the ground. Like, this room is very, very weirdly decorated, right? With this cross wallpaper. And yeah, the idea that Sayaka puts on this front of being super confident about being a magical girl, but she's actually really scared. I wonder if Mammy was similar as well. So Madoka asks if she can come along, and Kyubey ain't gonna say no to that. Kyubey's gonna be like, sure, you can come. And yeah, that one little shot of Kyubey where she's like, will you take me with you until I become a burden? And Sayaka's like, sure. And that one moment where we see Sayaka, like, just looking at her, it is like this creepy little half shot of Kyubey's eye just staring at her. It's unsettling. Y'all can say he's cute, whatever, but he's unsettling. Yep, it's terrifying. So yeah, Sayaka's like, all right, let's go. You can follow me while we hunt for witches. And then they have them like holding hands and their shadows connecting. She's like, I'm a magical girl now, but I feel kind of helpless by myself. And Kyubey's like, it'd be great if you all worked together. And so yeah, having someone by my side makes me feel a lot better. That alone makes me feel invincible. I wouldn't say that. The last time somebody told Madoka they felt invincible with Madoka by their side, they died. So it looks like Homura might have saved you from Kyouko, but because Kyouko didn't, tie Homura up like Mommy did. And then now Kyubey does say, this is how dangerous this is. And Sayaka admits that she's dumb. She's like, I'm stupid, so I might do something reckless if I'm by myself. Yeah, I'm sure Kyubey was like, oh no. So they go looking for the witch. Into the darkness they go. And then Kyubey's like, oh, you have a plan too, right, Madoka? Creepy as sin. And then, he looks at her through his eyes. I know how you want to protect Sayaka. With you there, we'll have an ace up our sleeve in the worst case scenario, meaning you can turn into a magical girl. And tapping into her psyche, I'm like, that is some next level 4D chess manipulation of being like, you want to keep your friends safe. So if anything happens, you can always turn into a magical girl and wish to protect her. I'm like, shut the frick up, Kyubey. Quit trying to convince her to become a magical girl and sell her soul. Stop it. And then she's like, I'm sure Sayaka will be against it too. But I'll be ready whenever you make up your mind. That is such a creepy thing too, because when somebody says something like that, he didn't say, the choice is yours. You can do whatever you want. That phrase, I'll be ready whenever you make up your mind, is rhetorically suggesting and persuading that, I'll be ready whenever you say yes. That's what it's doing. Mother trucking little cat demon. And it's also creepy how all of the sidewalks and roads all intersect in weird junctures, and then it's like Frogger where there's the same cars going in the line under them. Some weird stuff, right? But I hate that Kyubey is trying to manipulate her. Yep. And then Madoka's like, okay. So they go through town looking for this witch, and they manage to find this creepy corridor. This barrier was probably made by a familiar, not a witch. So they say that right off the bat. Yeah, the easier the better. And so there's all these crayons. and these dice. There's like bloody handprints on the side of the wall. Why? It's bloody because it's in red paint. No. And elephants and giraffes. Nope. All of these crayons that have words on them that I can't read that somebody is going to translate, hopefully. She's like, I don't have a lot of experience. So you can't let your guard down. It's all the shadows and the staircases that they're on are super creepy. And there's like all of these letters and shapes. And there's this like shadow coming up. There's an elephant and a giraffe, which is interesting. Okay, there's a dog too. And then from the shadows comes, I like their shadows kind of merge into pigtails. Then there's a witch with pigtails and a crown. Like crayons. It is creepy as sin. And there's like a hippo and a dog shadow toy and like a lizard. But yeah, this little girl has an airplane. I'm telling you, the witches all having pigtails and looking like little girls, they're connected to the magical girls somehow. Nope. So creepy. And they're like, is that it? Is that it? It's getting away. And then Sayaka's like, leave it to me. And she has a transformation. There's a musical note that comes out of it, which is interesting. So I'm thinking the musical note is tied to, yeah, the musical note with the eye coming out, which is super creepy, is tied to the wish that she made connected to Kamijo. Now, Kyouko says that Sayaka, because her wish had something to do with healing, that she's able to resist attacks more. Well, hell, Mommy made a wish to keep herself from dying, so she should be near invincible, but that wasn't the case. How does that work? They give us this little world building lore bits, but then they don't necessarily explain them, so I'm like, I can't wait for the show to get more into it. But yeah, so her transformation is linked to music, which connects to Kamijo, right? Makes sense. I don't know how I feel about the gemstone being in her belly button, because it looks like Kyoka's gemstone was here on her chest, like on her chest by her heart, and Mommy's was up in the flower that she had, but the moon-shaped crystal orb was right there at her stomach. I don't know how I feel about that. It feels weird for it to be in her stomach. I don't know how that works. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a very odd decision. But yeah, and I like separate elements of Sayaka's outfit, like as the magical girl. Like I like certain elements. Like I like the corset, I like the skirt, I like the boots and the cape, but all of them together is just like not tacky, but I'm not a fan. So yeah, so she shows up, has like all the swords under her cape, which is great, kind of like Mommy using the guns. She uses all the swords and is like striking at the witch, who's like, oh no, and like her airplane turns into a car and she starts speeding out of control, but then she gets happy, which that is so creepy. Yeah. Then she gets stalled by a sword, but then the lance comes. Kyoka's lance comes. She gets freaked out, and the lance basically knocks the swords away, and she kills the witch. And Kyubey doesn't say a mother trucking thing. Kyubey doesn't say, oh, look, Sayaka, that's Kyouko. She's a magical girl, too. She's kind of an asshole. You should watch out for her. She wants to beat you up because we've had secret conversations about it. Doesn't say a damn word. Doesn't say a damn word. Nope. He just sits there and watches. And then she shows up and gets, I like that the witch gets cornered and like all the animals are starting to get more frightened on the wall and there's more bloody handprints. And then on top of the sword is Kyouko. Her magical girl outfit's bitchin'. I love her magical girl outfit. I would dress up as Kyouko in a heartbeat. Long red wig, that dress with the little cutout, and like all the frills on it, the sleeve gloves, and she has the fish pastry. Let me be her in a heartbeat. I'll take it. And she has a lance. She kind of reminds me of, if you've watched the series Ruby, she instantly reminded me of Pyrrha. Her design and the spear reminds me of Pyrrha. But that's, if you've not watched Ruby, you won't get that. And she's like, what are you two doing? And then we see like the kids' land just turn into stars. And then there was like a little name there. Was it Amy? It looks like an A, but I don't know. Or does it say end? And that's it. but it was a familiar. It wasn't a witch yet. And she points the spear at Sayaka and she's like, that's not a witch. It's a familiar. There's not a grief seed yet. Now, Kyouko says if you let it escape, they're like, well, if you let it escape, someone's going to be killed. And Kyoko's like, are you kidding me? She just eats the little fish pastry and says you just have to wait until it eats 4 or 5 people and becomes a witch. So, I am so curious about Kyouko and why she is the way that she is. Because she establishes that there's this order, right, where you have this food pyramid, and at the bottom are humans. And humans get eaten by the witches. The witches get eaten by the magical girls. And then the magical girls get eaten by Kyubey. No, I don't think that. We don't know about the Kyubey business. But the idea of magical girls eating witches is with the grief seed thing is a bit creepy. That's heartless. The idea of like, oh, just wait till this familiar like just eats a couple people and becomes a witch. Then you get more points. That's ruthless. And I want to know why Kyouko is like that. But I don't know if we're going to find it out in this series. I'm hoping we do. Cause then, I like her lance also like retracts. She's like, that way you'll be able to get a grief seed from it. She's like, why would you want to slaughter the chicken before it lays any eggs? So we still don't know this whole thing about rewards and the grief seeds. We don't exactly know what the point of getting the grief seed is, what it does, like what do you do with the grief seeds after you collect them? What's the point of them? We've not found that out necessarily. But they're like, well, you're just going to sit back and watch the witch kill everyone? And because Sayaka wants to be a hero, and Kyoko's like, yeah, I don't care about being a hero. Listen, newbie, you're getting this all wrong. I love the shadows that are played off of every character in this episode. It's great. And she's just sitting there, has the circle. It's like the gem is like her thing that's an eye, which kind of looks like the eye of Kyubey. I'm just saying, it kind of looks like the eye of Kyubey in that moment. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like Kyubey's eye, which is super creepy. And she's like, the witches eat the weak humans. We eat those witches. That's the order. I like we have these posters that are thrashed in the background. And I like that Madoka's like, this is weird. And Kyubey does not correct any of this. So then we have these chains to keep Madoka away from them. The chains look like they had the circular eyes within them as well. So she's like, you made a contract with him to play out a ridiculous farce. And yeah, I like that Kyubey is just casually looking over to Kyouko, like, what you going to do about all this? Yeah. And then we see her face being like, yeah, pretending to be a hero and rescuing people. So she has these chains that keep Madoka separated from them. They all look like eyes, but they also look like they have some talisman or something inside of them. And so, yeah, they end up fighting each other. And while they're fighting each other, while they're like battling each other, Madoka is being like trying to be convinced by Kyubey to become a magical girl to stop the fight, which is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, Kyouko decides that she's just going to kill her. She's like, I'll just kill her. It'll be fine. She's like, you're a stupid rookie. And she asked her to cool her head. But instead of knocking her out for 3 months worth of damage, Sayaka gets back up. She became a magical girl using a wish for healing after all. Her ability to recover from damage is exceptional. And she's like, it's because people like you are around that mommy's dead. And she's like, you're annoying. I don't even think she knows who mommy is. But yeah, so Sayaka heals her wounds using her magic. And they fight some more. And then that's when they're like, it's too dangerous. She's like, you're too dumb to understand words. So if you don't get it when I beat you down, then I'll just kill you. And I'm like, that says something for a magical girl to just decide to kill another magical girl. That's insane. And yeah, she tries to stop her then. There's the water droplets and everything. And I'm so glad because at this point, as she's about to kill her, in this moment, and Madoka's like, there's not a witch here. Why is this happening? And Kyubey's like, well, I don't know why these people that are on the same side have to fight. And then, yeah, Kyubey says it's hopeless. She's like, didn't you give these guys contracts? Can't you like give them a pep talk? And Kyubey's like, I can't do anything. It's hopeless. They're just going to keep fighting until the death. Neither of them are going to back down. I mean, unless we had another magical girl enter the fight. Because she's like, Kyubey, make them stop. And he's like, oh, I can't do anything, but you can. It's like, damn it, no! You son of a bitch. He's like, you could stop them by force if you became a magical girl. Oh my god, I hate that cat. Yep, you have the capacity to do it if that's what you really wish. And I'm like, that's such like forcing her in that moment to make that decision. Like, she's so impressionable and kind, and Kyubey knows that. Insanity. And yeah, I do really like the weapon that Kyouko has, the lance that becomes like the nunchucks. It's really cool. And in that moment, Madoka's about to make a wish, and Homura's like, no, there ain't no need for that. I like that her tears become like sparkles in that instance. I like her tears are like instantly stopped with sparkles, and Homura's like, no, I'm going to show up because I just can't let you do this. I really like the shot of Kyouko when she goes to like get Sayaka and Homura breaks it up. That shot's probably going to be the thumbnail. It's really good. Now, my thing is, Sayaka. Homura just showed up in the middle of y'all. I like that she's purple, which is a mixture of red and blue. She showed up in the middle of y'all and saved you. Are you going to be a bitch and try to attack her? Or are you going to try to like thank her and figure out what's going on? I'm afraid that Sayaka's going to be like, I don't need your help, Homura. You tried to kill mommy. Get away. And Homura's going to be like, fine, bitch. And then take Madoka and run and boot Kyubey off. But I don't know. I'm like, Sayaka, she literally saved your life. I would be grateful if I were you. And yep, she just shows up. She does the ultimate hair flip and is like, bitch, please. And then that's the end of the episode. Damn it. So yeah, this episode. It was definitely a transition episode. And I feel like there was less like sitting down and stuff to theorize as just like action being set up. I cannot believe they just ended it like mid-scene and left us with that cliffhanger. How dare it? How dare it? Right? Can't believe it. But that's what happened. So, but anyway, so I'm super excited to see next week. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait to comments. That may not happen. We'll see. We'll see. But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts down below about this episode. If you all are Kyubey fans and you think he is the most precious beam of sunshine, he's just trying to make the world a better place, you're just going to have to deal with me suspecting him and not liking him. That's all I can tell you. And maybe if the series proves me wrong by the end, I will graciously admit my wrong conviction. But we'll wait and see if we get to that point. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next time with more Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Episode 6 halfway next week. Bye!